find that your love for anime takes you to some very strange places? Because I know what does for me, and I'm not even talking about the time that you went to an anime convention and asked a total stranger for an aspirin, and next thing you know, you're waking up 6 hours later in a hotel room with 4 other people in the bed dressed as Sonic characters. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about anime, and I know as somebody who has this endless search for anime hidden gems, sometimes I'll be 200 pages deep in some of these anime database sites just looking for something that is different that I would enjoy and something that I've never even heard of before, because it's just fun to do that. I always say that anime is just like an adventure because there's so much that you can see, and this is where the anime grab bag is born. These videos will contain 3 totally random anime that all fall under the same criteria. 1, they have to be OVAs or movies. 2, they have to have had an English dub, and 3, I have to have never seen them before. So it's totally random. You're going to get some good ones, you're going to get some okay ones, you're probably going to get some bad ones too, and I don't know any of these before I start making the video, and all of these I actually watch them with my Patreon supporters in a Discord chat. So if you want to watch some of these with us in the future, you know what to do. We've got links in the description section below, but let's begin. So a few days ago, we started watching Spectral Force with some of my Discord supporters on Patreon there. And this thing right here, to be honest with you, this is kind of an embarrassing mistake for somebody like me to make, but the cover looked good, and that was really about it. I was basically going by, and I don't regret watching this, but at the same time, it was definitely a learning experience for me. So we watched Spectral Force, and as soon as we started watching this, the animation hit me, and I was like, wait a minute, this looks familiar. I had everybody stop, and I started to look this up. Who created this? Because I didn't look anything up. These are total blind entries on this list here, and I think it's better that way. You'll see why in some of the later entries here. So Spectral Force was actually created by the same person that was behind Mars of Destruction, one of the most hated anime of all time. And to be honest with you, I should probably make a special video just on this director and scriptwriter alone, because it looks like everything that he's made is just terrible. I may have found the absolute worst anime director and anime scriptwriter. I gotta just watch some of the other stuff that this guy's made, because it all looks very, very bad here. So Spectral Force is basically about, it's set in this fantasy world, and you've got demons and you've got humans, and humans are basically oppressed by the demons, and they're basically trying to go and overthrow the demon lord, but it's not as simplistic as that. To be honest with you, the story, it really goes all over the place, but for me, the hardest thing was just focusing on the story through the animation, because this has got to be, bar none, the worst animation that I've ever seen. I talk about Super Kid whenever we talk about the worst anime out there, or even Mars of Destruction as the worst animation out there. No, this is much worse than any of that. I feel like that there are times in other series where you have a character turn their head from one side to another that has more frames in that animation than entire fight sequences here, where you just have characters that are bobbing around the screen. There are times when there's even characters here who speak telepathically just so that they won't have to animate the mouth flaps.
So they have the sword, correct? Tenmaken is the only weapon that can destroy me. You will have to rule on your own. I hope you fare better than I.
Spectral Force was such a total disaster, but what made the experience even more nerve-grating was that we had the voice of Shinji from Neon Genesis Evangelion, and he did such a terrible job here. It's hard to even believe that it was him.
Oh, great! She thinks just because I'm short I can't kill a big ugly demon, huh?
Everything about this 2-episode OVA is a total disaster, especially the backgrounds here. I don't think I've ever seen anything with worse backgrounds than this. This reminds me of something from a bargain bin PS1 game. You remember PS1 had those pre-rendered backgrounds for a lot of the games, and some of those still look amazing today, even if you don't look at the remastered version or anything about that. Sometimes they do actually look pretty good, but this, I've never seen any sort of pre-rendered backgrounds that look as bad as this. It looks like, to be honest with you, I probably could have done it in about 20 minutes on any sort of blender or something like that. It looks that bad. So just for these anime grab bag videos, I'm bringing the scoring back just because this is not a full-length review. This is just me blowing point by point through some of these shows. I give Spectral Force a 1 out of 10. This is something that you do not want to touch with a 10-foot pole. If you are a glutton for punishment and just want to see the worst anime that you could possibly find, then go ahead and check out Spectral Force if you want, but be warned, it sucks. So after having made a few of my patrons sit down and suffer with me in watching Spectral Force, we moved on to Shamanic Princess. And Shamanic Princess, by comparison, it felt like you're just in a hot house in the summer and your air conditioner's broken, it finally gets cut back on. Just this sigh of relief, because it was actually enjoyable in comparison to Spectral Force, which isn't saying much, but still, I feel like this is probably going to mean something to a few people here, and I think a few people might just go ahead and check this one out and actually enjoy it. So Shamanic Princess is a 6-episode OVA that's a fantasy action series that kind of feels a little bit like a magical girl show, but at the same time it's not really. So you've got this girl who is a mage, and it's her duty to retrieve the mystical item called the Throne of Yord. The only problem is that somebody special to her in her life actually has the item, and she needs to retrieve it, so that actually makes it more complicated. The story in itself is very convoluted, and it's likely to lose you. Everybody that watched this with me, we were just lost. I was on the verge of being put to sleep by this. It was, the story to me was not doing it for me. I was honestly just about being put to sleep while watching this, especially in the second half. However, I do have to say that there is definitely a redeeming factor to this anime here, and it's all from its presentation. So just looking at the art style here, this came out in the 90s. You can definitely tell from the art style and also the animation, and I feel like this would look so much better if it was remastered, but still, even looking at it as it is, with some of the fights that we have here and the transformation sequences, they really did go all out in the animation. And if you're somebody that loves detailed art and animation, then I would say go ahead and check out Shamanic Princess, because some of these battles were awesome. This is an anime, when you look at the cover and you read the description, you're not going to be prepared for the experience that you're going to get when watching it. However, the story, I wasn't a big fan of it. Nobody that watched this with me was a big fan of it either. It was convoluted, it was even confusing. You need to rewatch it, but I don't think it's enjoyable enough to rewatch. However, there are redeeming qualities to this, and that all comes from the animation here. So if you're somebody that will just sit down and watch an anime that the story is of questionable quality, but just to see amazing artwork, which I am like this from time to time. I love to see beautiful artwork in anime and just relax and watch something that I know it's not going to be that great, but I know it's going to look absolutely beautiful. This is totally that type of anime. I give Shamanic Princess a 6 out of 10. If you're just looking for something that is beautiful, then go ahead and check it out, but like I said, the story, you might be nodding off a bit. So needless to say, the group morale was not at a very high place, and people probably wanted to run for the hills and never look back at this point. So I figured we need a good laugh. I looked up something on the list of anime that I had found and written down that was a comedy, and that just so happened to be Labyrinth of Flame, which was actually pretty funny, so it was a good choice. So Labyrinth of Flame is about this princess, Aoi, who is basically the successor to a very rich family, and she is basically given away to marry this one guy. So she's engaged, but she doesn't want to be married to him. So basically the family has this ritual of giving this sacred sword down to the guy who takes on the family name, basically. And she steals that sword and gives it over to Gallon, the guy that she wants to marry. But this guy, Gallon, he's kind of like my own spirit animal right here, because it's this white guy that was totally obsessed with samurai.
Kick his butt! Woo!
All right! You best to have this coming to you, Mr. Datanocean!
And we see him in the first scene here. He is making some traditional green tea, but the only problem is that he doesn't have green tea, and he's using coffee grinds. So he's got coffee grinds in a bowl, and he's using that green tea whisk to make up this sludge of coffee grinds and water, which looks absolutely disgusting, serving it to him. And overall, the show as a whole, it just turned out to be really goofy and silly. There's loads of fan service here. Like, there's probably 100 or 200 panty shots in this entire series. They really do go all out, especially this time, because you've got this servant, Kasumi, and she really reminds me of Hyatt from Excel Saga. If you remember Excel Saga, Hyatt was the character who was always sick and dying in every episode. She's bleeding out the nose and possibly bleeding out the mouth and changing colors and stuff like that. Kasumi wheels around this IV bag that she has, and she's always just so selfless and protective of Aoi, the princess, that she will do anything for her. She's like, no, you're not allowed to knock on the door. Or even the time when there was a big puddle, or even a small puddle there, she just lunged in front of her and busted her face wide open on the ground. And then we had this awkward moment right here.
You almost got your feet wet in this terrible puddle that was lying here. Please, Lady Natsu, won't you just step on me? Please, oh please! Oh my, what a faithful servant I am!
The funny thing about Kasumi is whenever there's any problem, she'll take her IV bag and exchange it for one that's some special sort of medical concoction that's only for her and turns her skin gold, and she's able to just fight just on par with anybody there. She's one of the strongest people once she puts that bag on there, but other than that, she's so weak that she can't even knock on a door without passing out. Labyrinth of Flames is wild and really holds no punches, but if you're not a big fan of crude humor, then it may not be for you, because we have such touching father-daughter moments such as this.
Father!
Oh, you're becoming more and more like your late mother, yes!
You dirty old man! Bullshit! If you try that again, I'll kill you!
Labyrinth of Flame goes all out. It is ridiculous, and I thought this was really funny. Everybody that watched this with me, we all were just there cracking up laughing, and I know that may sound a bit weird because there's so much crude fan service jokes and everything in this anime here, but one of my favorite comedy anime is Golden Boy. So, I know it may sound a bit weird because I have criticized anime for having too much fan service, but I feel like there's a time and a place, and just some silly anime that is not really trying to do anything so serious. I think it's fine to have just loads of fan service like this, but I'm just going to say that it's not for everybody because I know not everybody likes that sort of humor. Supposedly, from what I've read about this anime online, there's actually a lot of influence from Russian culture in this anime. I don't know a whole lot about Russian culture, but if you know a lot about Russian culture, or if you are interested in Russian culture, then you may be interested in watching this. I don't really think that's going to be something major that gets people to like this anime. I think it's just funny enough on its own that it really just stands up as being a good comedy anime. I give this show a 7 out of 10. It is totally worth watching, and I do recommend checking this out. The comedy here works, the action works, the art and animation about how their facial features will just change as they get so angry, and they'll just go from this neat art style to something that is totally chaotic, and they just go all out in terms of everything here with the comedy, with the animation. It even has good voice acting too, and it's so funny too because we have this perverted samurai character that is voiced by the voice actor that did Brock in the very first season of Pokemon, so it was kind of a trip just hearing him say some of the things that he did in that anime.
It may look bad, but it's a minor error. But the battle has only just begun. Ah!
So there you have it, episode 1 of Anime Grab Bag. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by telling me in the comments section and also hitting that like button. If I get 200 likes here, then I will continue to do these every so often because I actually had a decent amount of fun doing this, but I gotta know that you guys enjoyed it if I want to keep doing it. But if you'd like to continue and actually join me in the Patreon Discord chat, then check out the Patreon link. We've got all sorts of bonuses. That's one of them. The channel is primarily funded by viewer support at this point, and this is just one of the ways that I give back, us watching anime together. It was a load of fun, even though we watched some terrible anime a little bit here. I think everybody still had fun because I know I did. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Have an awesome week, everybody.